Lauren Anderson, Executive Director of Our Minds Matter.
What inspired you to create the organization?
Yeah, so I lost my brother Josh to suicide when he was 17 and a junior in high school. And that was 2009. I was a senior in college at the time of his death, and I was studying business. And I went on to work at a small investment bank for a few years. And in that time, my family and I, we had started collecting a bit of funds through these annual runs that we did kind of in his memory. And so after a few years of doing, this banking job, I, one, had to kind of reorient around my healing journey, and two, kind of wanted to see what I could do with a bit of my business skills, so to speak, in putting the money to use to really um, impact teens directly or reach teens directly. Because in my brother's case, he had a lot of adult resources available to him. My parents were quite involved. He was seeing like a therapist at the time of his death. He wasn't an isolated kid. He had friends. He had a girlfriend. He was a popular student athlete. He played football and lacrosse. So all of this to say that for the most part, like, seemed like he had a lot of resources like around him and kind of network around him, and yet he himself didn't have either the language, the empowerment, the feelings of support to be open and honest about what he was really going through, what he was really feeling. And so there wasn't the ability to really help him then, because no one knew
Yeah.
what he was really going through. And so I think that um, has been more or less sort of like the North Star of our mission, is to equip teens directly with the knowledge, the awareness, the empowerment to seek help for themselves, their peers, to be aware of kind of warning signs, to have a little bit more mental health literacy and languaging. And then we also work to build kind of positive, protective skills, mental health skills. So, being socially connected with others and having, the awareness and being able to use coping skills, and then those pro-social skills of supporting peers. And so, yeah, I mean, it came from tragedy, essentially, but kind of, I think, from my standpoint, how could I use this experience to hopefully save other teens, other families from going through what we went through?
How does helping others help your own healing process?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it I think it's been a source of healing for not only myself but my family and even kind of extended family. Like, it's been a way for a lot of people who were touched and, um, grieved for, Josh's death, to be able to kind of put that into action in some way. I think for my personal healing journey, it's been sort of, um, I would say it's helped to have like this ability to do something active and to feel like, I'm using what I went through to like make a difference in other, for other people and for the future and stuff. But I also have had to be careful, because I can sort of go into like business mode,
Yeah.
so to speak, with the organization and not also have the part of me that like lost a brother and that is a sister who went through this really horrible thing, and like almost like compartmentalizing the two, if that makes sense. And so part of my healing journey, I think, has been like better integrating the two, um, so that I can have kind of ownership of both of those things. And yeah, just kind of be living from more of my authentic self.
And I'm in the Northern Virginia area, so we're in the same area. And when I was doing my research, I saw you're in a number of schools in the area. Can you tell me about that program?
Yeah, so essentially our flagship program is a teen-led, student-led club model. So it engages students, teens in high schools and middle schools to form a club at their school, overseen by a staff sponsor. So this is a school staff member who's either the school psychologist, the school social worker, a counselor, oftentimes paired with a teacher. But then these clubs conduct activities as a small group that all center around those kind of skills that I mentioned. So, building connectedness with one another, increasing help seeking behavior. So that's, speaking to reducing stigma around mental health, awareness of resources, empowerment to, seek help and be honest and forthcoming. Coping skills, and then pro-social skills. And so our organization provides these basically content for these clubs to be, running activities, discussions among one another, as well as our program staff provide a lot of kind of logistical support, troubleshooting, just helping the clubs really remain active and be sustainable. And then these clubs also work to engage and reach their school community by way of school-wide campaigns or other initiatives that are kind of aimed at reaching the entire or broader set of students within the school. And so, yes, we are Fairfax County Public Schools in Northern Virginia. That's where I went through, the school system, and the rest of my family, my siblings. So that is very much kind of our home base. We've been partnered with that school system for quite a while now. And that is also part of our model. We partner with school districts, and then we, kind of deploy our program to their respective high schools and middle schools. So we're partnered with Fairfax County Public Schools, Montgomery County Public Schools, and then DC Public Schools. And then we recently are expanding into DC Public Charter High Schools. So kind of, saturated here in the DC metro area. But a lot of our model is based on that partnership at that school district level.
What have you learned from working with teens?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think what's sort of unique about our lens is we work with some of the most, passionate and amazing teens who are, student leaders of their club and who want to make a difference in their school community, and who, go above and beyond in a lot of ways. And so I think in a way, our perspective is a little bit skewed of like the average kind of teen, just because the ones who we're kind of connecting with and interfacing with are sort of, really impressive when
Yeah.
it comes to their passion and their advocacy and their wanting to make a difference and be part of change, that I think is so impressive at a young age. But I mean, I think we also hear from them and from, just our membership in general, which which is more inclusive of sort of maybe your average teenager these days. Um, that I think it's a difficult time to be a teen. I think it's always a difficult time to be a teen
Right.
because of so much going on in terms of just developmentally, right? And kind of that wanting independence, but you're not really independent quite yet. And so much of your identity is wrapped up in, your social circle and what you're doing. And, there isn't really a sense of like, who are you really? And then you layer on social media and how that has a whole element of projection, right? Of like an image, and then it's that takes you further away from who are you really authentically, right? And not to mention just a lot of what's going on in the world and how people and teens have access, at their fingertips to all of this information. And so there's constant overload around, some difficult things just in our environment. And so I think it's a hard time to be a teen. And, I think that's unfortunately why we see that there's, pretty heavy stats when it comes to teen mental health, suicide rates, and why ultimately, we're doing the work that we do.
And with teens trying to get help and understand mental health, is it also important for their family or their support system to be educated as well?
I think that's exactly right. I think it is really important, and that can often be where there is a barrier,
Yeah.
or, there can be obstacles because I do think this generation of teens, for the most part, are a little bit more progressive in terms of
Yeah.
talking about mental health. Like I think there has been sort of stigma has come a long way around mental health, and so there's more openness for discussing that, but that's not to say that that exists at the parent level,
Yes.
because they
Right.
might come from a generation where we don't talk about mental health, or we don't talk about those types of issues, or you layer on kind of cultural influences that could impact views on mental health. So I think that can oftentimes be a challenge, and where perhaps there's you know teens and young people who need support could be facing some obstacles and barriers to getting that support or the right kind of services or whatnot if that's needed, if parents aren't kind of don't have that knowledge base around mental health, or they have some inherent kind of stigmas or
Yeah.
thinking around mental health that's in conflict with really what's needed to help their kid. um so I think I think it can be a challenge oftentimes.
I know for me, I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder too at 37. So I always think like, what would have happened if I either was not afraid of the stigma or caught it earlier in high school? Because I
Mm.
talked to a lot of young adults and teenagers, and they are very open about it.
And that's what we know too, is that approximately 50% of folks who have a diagnosable mental illness kind of have symptoms of that illness as early as 14.
Yeah.
So we know that those who have a mental health disorder, a mental illness, a large percentage of those folks kind of experience that early as a teenager.
What do you do to help your own mental health?
Good question. I'm glad that you asked that question. So, I kind of briefly talked about my like healing journey. I have been, you know, and thankfully really resourced myself. I mean, I have a therapist that I've um, been seeing, consistently for many, many years now, who knows me very well, knows, kind of everything, obviously, that I went through and all of how that affects, kind of who some of my um, not so helpful coping skills and positive coping skills too, and helping me build those more positive coping skills, right? So, um, that is definitely a pillar for me. And then I, went early on, um, I came across this book, Yoga for Depression, and it just really like spoke to me in a lot of ways, because after Josh's death, I was the first like heightened like symptom that I was experiencing was like pretty significant anxiety. And then I learned, from starting therapy and such, that it was a lot of like trauma responses that I was experiencing. And then kind of dealing with anxiety at such a heightened level caused me to feel really hopeless. And that kind of led to some of that depression. Like, is this how my life's always going to be? And I can't enjoy normal things because my anxiety is so high, right? And so, like, kind of, what is this existence if I have to live with such heightened anxiety, right? And so, um, this book, Yoga for Depression, really spoke to me. And then I started to kind of dip my toe a little bit in some yoga things. And then I went to this retreat that was by the people from the Yoga for Depression. And, anyways, I really, I think for me, like the mind body connection and how I can use actually my body, like breath or even body sensations, a as a really strong tool and coping mechanism, essentially, to some of the anxiety and different things. And so I think, therapy coupled with these mind body practices, coupled with, I take a mood stabilizer and have for a while now. So I think those three things, in terms of sort of my tangible toolbox, have really kind of resourced myself. And then just having a network of people that I can reach out to. I have, my sister, my mom, my husband, who, I feel really comfortable being like very honest and open with. And so I think that's helped me as well, just not ever being like alone in any kind of really challenging time with my mental health.
What would you say to anyone going through a tough time?
Yeah. Um I think it's really hard to believe it when you're in the tough time, but I would say this is temporary, and it has the possibility, and likely strong possibility, of getting much better. Um, and I think that also it requires sometimes holding on to the hope that other people are offering you, because sometimes when you're in that really hard, dark place, you're not able to have that hope for yourself. And so you have to almost hold on to this belief that's a bit outside of you, um, but that exists, and to potentially just hold on to to that hope that other people who have been in those dark places are saying that they've come through it, and there is that possibility and there is that chance. And then the other thing I would say is, I think it's so important to have, and if it is a really challenging time with significant mental health, things going on, obviously, like a mental health professional would be the best person to be very honest and open with. But I would say at least having one person who you can be honest and open with about what's really going on, because I think what can add to any type of despair is feeling so alone in it. And just by bringing someone else into it who you trust, who, loves you unconditionally, or in the case of like a therapist who is skilled to hold that space with you, that you're just not in it alone.
And when I was looking at your website, I was looking at your team that are in the organization, and you have quite a few people. How does it feel that you have people who believe in you and believe in your mission?
It is amazing. It really is. I had lunch with someone today and was kind of talking about the evolution of the organization from it being just myself for many years actually to now where we are, with like 14 full-time staff. And um, it is really amazing. And it inspires me further when I see other people, the staff, so passionate and dedicated to this work, and who believe in it so wholeheartedly as well. I think that inspires me, to kind of stay inspired and stay with it, which is really great.
Where do you want to see your mission in the next 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think what we've built is a very scalable model, so to speak, in that, we have this way of, again, partnering with school districts or systems, and then kind of our program fills a gap in engaging students directly in this work to improve mental health through buffering these protective factors, and reaching the wider school community through kind of advocacy um, and kind of grassroots, kind of campaigning. And so I think that we're pretty saturated here in the DC metro area. But I think as long as there's a need, and I think the need is very high right now
Yeah.
for teens in schools, that we're able to, be in more schools and be able to reach more students and engage more students in this work. And so yeah, I think I want to also like scale at a pace that is sustainable and, makes sense for the organization. But I think kind of taking our model and expanding, regionally, and where there also is high interest, coupled with, funding opportunities to make it happen, then, I see us growing and scaling, um, in a way that keeps our impact, really kind of at the forefront.
How can people reach out and learn more?
Yeah, so check out our website, ourmindsmatter.org. We're on Instagram, as well. That's kind of our main social platform, I would say. But yeah, check out our website. A lot of, our staff's contact information is available, if you want to kind of reach out to one of us. And yeah, check us out on social.